This happened to me a couple of years ago. I'm a female, and at the time, I was 25 years old. I was a cashier at the local grocery store working the morning shifts. I usually was working the self-checkout section where the customers can scan their own items without waiting in the long lines. I knew all the front-end employees by name, but the rest of the people working there I only knew by face. It wasn't uncommon since the cashiers had to stay at their registers, and we usually only saw the others when they came to the front to clock in or out of their shifts. I had been working there for several months when one of the guys from the deli department started saying hi to me. I would be nice and say hi back. He would come up to the front self-checkout area every morning, bringing the cooked rotisserie chickens to put on display underneath the hot lamp that was located there. We started to do some small talk before he went back to the deli department. He was in his late 60s and a widower, so I was trying to be nice by smiling at him and continuing our small little talks every day we saw each other. I just thought maybe he was lonely and the only people he got to talk to were the people at work. Pretty much everyone who worked there knew how much I loved Disney, since I had a Disney purse and always wore Disney earrings. After a couple of weeks of talking to this guy, he suddenly started giving me Disney stuff and hanging out up front longer than normal. Then, when he got off work at 11, he would hang out until I went to lunch at 12 to come talk to me during my lunch break. Finally, one day, he came to where I was sitting at my lunch and asked me out. I was starting to feel uncomfortable about that since he was old enough to be my grandfather. I'm not good with confrontation, so I didn't know how to turn him down nicely. I just said I'm sorry, but I have to go since my break was over with. Then, the next day, one of the cashiers that I would talk to frequently told me that he ran into her at the Walmart the day before. She said that when he saw her in her uniform, he asked her what department she worked in since he worked there too. When he found out that she was a cashier, he asked if he knew me and started talking. When he found out that she was working as a cashier, he asked if she knew me and started describing what I looked like. He even knew what days and times I worked, along with what kind of car I drove. She told me that he said he would hang out, waiting for me to get off of work. Now I was really uncomfortable, knowing he was watching me as I was walking to my car. After hearing all this, whenever I saw him, I started acting busy, trying to avoid him as much as I could. As a cashier, we weren't allowed to leave the registers unless we were going on break or going home. Since I worked the self-checkout, I couldn't even leave to use the bathroom unless I had someone to cover me, which, at that time of morning, there wasn't any other cashiers trained to cover the self-checkout. For a few days, I would change the areas I would sit for lunch, and a few times I even sat in my car. Then, one day, he followed me to my car as I was getting off of work. He was yelling my name, trying to get my attention. I knew he was there, but I had a headset on and I acted like I didn't see or hear him. It was then I had decided that I would tell management about him. Since the one manager I felt the most comfortable talking to was off until the morning, I wanted to wait until then. So the next morning, when we had several cashiers working, I had asked the manager if there was a chance I could talk to him privately. As I was talking to him up in the office, telling him what was going on, the store manager came into the room for something and overheard part of the conversation. He came over and asked if I would feel comfortable telling him as well on what was going on. So I repeated to him what he had missed. I would tell that they were both were bothered by what I had told them. I even mentioned what the other cashier had mentioned to me. They said that they would talk to the cashier as well to get her side of what had happened since she was involved. After that, they would talk to the guy privately about things and to let him know that he wasn't allowed to talk to me anymore. Later on, I had found out that I wasn't the first person he had done this to. There were a few other women my age he had started talking to and following them as well. But they hadn't come forward until I did, since they thought if they ignored him, he would stop. After management had heard about how many young women he was going after, they let him go. Soon after this all happened, I ended up leaving that company and got a better paying job in a different town. I haven't heard about what happened to him after he was fired, but I hope that his new job doesn't have any young women working there for him to go after. I'm a 30-year-old female, and this happened to me not too long ago. I work late nights where I'm usually getting off around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Because of this, I usually ended up going to the store on my way home from work. I actually prefer doing this since it's quiet at that time of night. The store I usually go to closes at 11 p.m., so it gives me plenty of time to do my shopping. One day, while in the store, a guy came up standing right in front of me. He asked where I found the box of cereal that was in my cart. I pointed, saying about 3 rows in that direction. He didn't move like I thought he would. Instead, he was just standing there staring at me, not saying anything. I was getting a little creeped out about it. I asked if there was something else he needed, and when he didn't say anything, I backed up some, pushed my cart in the other direction. At this point, I was just a little creeped out, but I didn't think much of it since he didn't do anything except for standing there and staring at me. I continued shopping, looking for some items I needed. As I went into the second aisle over from where I saw the guy, I noticed he followed me into this one. Again, he went in front of my cart and stopped, just staring at me. After a few moments, he started asking me some personal questions, like where I worked and if I lived near the store. I told him that I didn't give out that information to people I didn't know, then said I had to get going. That was when I left to go to the front registers, even though I still needed a few things. The cashier asked if everything was okay, and I mentioned to her about the other customer. She offered to call someone to the registers to help walk me to my car. I thanked her and said that I would like that. While waiting for someone, I was looking around, but I hadn't seen the guy since I had left that aisle. After one of the managers walked with me to my car, he helped put my stuff into the back, and I thanked him. He waited for me to get into my car before he went back inside. I quickly left the parking lot to go home. Luckily, I only live a few minutes from the store. But as I pulled into my driveway, I saw a car slowly turn onto my street. I quickly grabbed the bags and ran for the front door, fumbling for my key. As I put the key into the door, I glanced down the street and saw the car was going really slow. I went in, closing the door behind me. It was a car I didn't recognize, with me knowing most of my neighbors on my street. In the back of my mind, I was hoping that it was just a friend of one of my neighbors, or a delivery driver looking for a house. While I was inside the house, I kept all my lights off, while I peeked out the front window, watching the car. My heart sank when I saw the car stop right in front of my house. As I moved from the window, I heard a door open and close. Moments later, I heard someone knocking at my front door. I looked out my peephole, and my fears came true. It was the guy from the store. I grabbed my phone and ran into the bathroom to call the cops. While I was on the phone, I heard the guy start pounding on my front door. I told the cops what was going on and that I had locked myself inside my bathroom. Just then, I heard glass breaking, and I nearly screamed. I started panicking, telling the operator that he just broke into my house, hearing him walking around. I can hear him yelling for me, telling me to come out. What felt like an eternity, I finally heard sirens in the background. I heard the cops yell freeze from outside. I didn't move, fearing to leave. Once I heard the cops start calling my name, I slowly opened the door. I watched them put the guy into the back of their car. That was when one of the cops told me that the guy had a knife and a rope on him. I had no clue what he would have done to me if he had caught me. I had called a friend who said that they would come over to help me with my window and stay the night with me. That was the last time I went to that store at night after work. A few years ago, I was having some family coming over to stay for a few days. So I had decided I should run to the store and pick up a few things. Since I had done most of my shopping already, I was just needing to pick up what I had forgotten. I was surprised when I found a great parking spot right when I got there, considering how busy it was. About 5 minutes after I had gone inside the store, I had a text from an unknown number. I saw that there was a picture, and when I went to open up the text, I saw it was of me getting out of my car. At first, I thought maybe it was one of my friends playing a joke on me or something. So I messaged all my friends asking them if they had done that, but they all denied doing it. I brushed it off, thinking that one of them must have done it and is just pretending that it wasn't them. I went back to my shopping when another message with a picture came in from that same unknown number. This time, when I opened it, it was of me standing in the aisle looking at my phone. Now I was getting a little worried and quickly started looking around to see if I could see any of my friends or someone acting strangely. But I didn't see my friends or anybody acting strangely. I quickly went to grab the last two items I needed and headed to the checkout, paying attention to those around me. After I checked out, I headed to my car, seeing a note on my windshield. It was writing in a child-style handwriting, saying that they thought I was cute. I got into my car and took off for home, watching in my mirrors for anyone following me home. Once I got home, grateful for not seeing anyone following me, I went inside and put my groceries away. After a while, I had forgotten about what had happened at the store. Later that night, around 11 p.m., I was finishing up a movie and decided I would head to bed. As I got up, turning the TV off and lights, my phone went off again. Fearing what I might see, I slowly pulled my phone out and saw it was a new picture from that same unknown number. I opened it up and saw it was the front of my house. I headed to the front window, peeking outside. There, standing at the end of my driveway, was someone standing as still as a statue. Sadly, I couldn't make out any details since the streetlights were behind him, so all I could see was a body standing there. They didn't appear to be moving at all. I quickly moved from the window and thought about calling the police, but I wasn't sure what to say exactly. After all, they were just standing there, and they hadn't really threatened me at all. I also wasn't 100% sure if it wasn't a friend of mine pulling a prank on me. I went into another room that overlooked the front yard to look out that window. Not wanting the person to know what room I was in, I left the lights off. I went to the window and pulled back the curtain just enough for me to look outside. The person was no longer standing at the end of the driveway. This made my heart skip a beat as I scanned the yard quickly to not see anyone there. Now, I'm starting to wonder if I had imagined the whole thing as I moved away from the window. Just then, I heard someone tapping on the window that I was just at. As I heard the tapping, I was afraid to look out the window. I took a deep breath and slowly pulled back the curtain to find a guy staring back at me. He looked crazy. He had messy hair and bloodshot eyes, and dirt on his face. I screamed, and I saw his smile widen as I let the curtain go. I quickly grabbed my phone as I went into my bedroom at the back of the house to hide in the closet. As I closed the door, I called the police, telling them what was going on. The operator kept me on the line as I stayed hidden. As I waited for the cops to show up, I couldn't hear anything. After what felt like forever, I heard the cops arrive, and I quickly came out of my hiding spots, running for the front door. I opened it up, going outside to the cops, explaining what happened. One of them went around my property before going inside to search in there as well, while the other cop stayed with me. Sadly, he never found anyone in or around my house, saying that he probably took off before they arrived. They did say they will patrol the area throughout the night and keep an eye open for anyone that fit that description I was able to give, though it wasn't a great one since I didn't get a great look at him. The guy never came back, and I never found out how he got my phone number or know how he found out where I lived. I could only think that he may have had been watching me for a while and I just never saw him. Shortly after this happened, I ended up moving into a different part of town, never to have anything like this happen to me again.